Welcome back, everyone, for the third story in our Unsolved Mystery series. This one is really a roller coaster. We're diving into the KM Nanavati case. It captivated all of India back in 1959.
Even all these decades later, the case still raises questions about justice, morality, and just the complexities of human relationships.
Yeah, and so we're talking about KM Nanavati, a decorated naval officer in bustling Bombay, living with his wife, Sylvia, and they had 3 children. It seemed like a picture-perfect life, but as we're about to find out, things were far from perfect behind closed doors.
Yeah, the sources we have really paint this picture of shocking betrayal that just set off this crazy chain of events that I don't think anyone could have predicted. And it all started when Sylvia confessed her love for another man, Prem Ahuja, a wealthy businessman and a friend of the family.
Okay, I'm already feeling the weight of this confession. Like, imagine being Nanavati, a man so used to order and discipline, and suddenly he's confronted with this kind of emotional upheaval. What was his immediate reaction?
Well, he didn't actually lash out at first. Instead, he told Sylvia that he was going to go speak with Ahuja, but this wasn't going to be a casual let's chat over tea kind of conversation. He went straight to the naval base and got a service revolver, then drove to Ahuja's residence.
Whoa, okay, so there's definitely a shift in tone here. This sounds way more like a confrontation than just a conversation.
Yeah, you could definitely say that. Sources say that when Nanavati walked into Ahuja's apartment, he asked him one crucial question. Will you marry Sylvia and take care of the children? It almost seems like he was seeking restitution in a way, like trying to restore order to his world that had just been completely shattered.
Yeah, that question really speaks volumes about Nanavati's mindset in that moment. So what did Ahuja say?
Well, unfortunately, we don't have a for sure record of his exact words, but we know that whatever he said, it triggered an intense reaction in Nanavati. Nanavati shot Ahuja and killed him instantly.
So a crime of passion fueled by betrayal and rage.
That's certainly one way to look at it. But the intrigue really deepens with what happened next. Nanavati didn't even try to run away. He drove straight to the nearest police station and surrendered. Confessed to the whole thing. Almost like he was driven by this sense of duty. Or maybe just the weight of his actions was too much to bear.
It's almost like confessing was his way of trying to regain control,
Yeah.
trying to restore some of that order that was so familiar to him.
Yeah, that's an interesting observation. And it's worth pointing out that this act of surrendering had a huge impact on how the public viewed Nanavati and the crime.
So from seemingly ordinary life to a shocking crime and a dramatic surrender, all in just a few hours, I can definitely see why this case gripped the whole nation.
And we're really just scratching the surface here. When we come back in the next part of our deep dive, we'll explore the media frenzy that this case sparked and all the public's divided reactions. And of course, the legal battle that followed. It's a story that really brings up more questions than it answers. It makes us think critically about the nature of justice and all the complexities of human emotion. So the Nanavati case just blew up. It was front page news all over India. This wasn't just some local crime story. It was a national sensation.
I know the sources I've been going through. Headlines like The Honorable Murderer and A Crime of Passion. Some were practically romanticizing the crime.
It's crazy how differently the media portrayed Nanavati. Some definitely made him out to be a tragic hero. The wronged husband driven to this desperate act, emphasizing Sylvia's infidelity. And Ahuja was painted as the villain preying on a vulnerable woman.
Yeah, I'm seeing similar narratives in a lot of these articles. But there had to be other voices too, right? Different perspectives.
Oh, absolutely. Some publications just condemned the crime, no question. Said taking a life is never justifiable, no matter what. They challenged that whole hero narrative around Nanavati, pointed out he armed himself deliberately, went after Ahuja. The premeditation was clear.
It's like the case became this lightning rod for bigger societal debates.
Exactly. It exposed those fault lines in India's changing social fabric, tapped into beliefs about honor, masculinity, the role of women. People had to confront their own biases about morality, justice, the law.
And class, social standing, that played a huge role too, right? I mean, the Nanavati, the naval officer, he was part of the elite, but Ahuja often portrayed as this playboy from a wealthy family.
Yeah, for sure. Those existing social hierarchies totally influenced how people saw it all. Some thought Nanavati got special treatment because of his status. Others saw him as like a symbol of traditional values, threatened by a changing world.
Wow, it's like this one case became a mirror.
Reflecting all of India's anxieties and hopes at the time.
But let's get into the legal battle itself. What were the main arguments during the trial?
So the prosecution, they focused on premeditation, argued that Nanavati went to the base specifically for his weapon, showing he planned the murder. He was cold, calculating, acting out of revenge.
Okay, and what about the defense? How did they fight back?
Their whole focus was Nanavati's emotional state. They said Sylvia's confession caused temporary insanity, leading to an impulsive act. Painted him as this man pushed to the edge by heartbreak and betrayal, classic crime of passion defense.
And that resonated with the jury, right? They acquitted him. But as we know, not the end of the story. The Bombay High Court overturned the verdict. Can you explain why they did that?
The High Court felt the jury was swayed by emotion. Public pressure got to them. They criticized that crime of passion defense and looked closer at the evidence, pointing out inconsistencies in Nanavati's testimony. Said the jury ignored the evidence of premeditation.
So basically, they felt personal feelings clouded the jury's judgment, putting sentiment over the law.
Exactly. Perfect example of that tension. That can happen between legal principles and human emotions. The High Court's decision was like, look, no matter what people think, no matter the circumstances, the law has to be applied fairly.
That must have divided public opinion even more.
Mm-hmm.
Some happy the law was upheld, others upset about the jury's decision being tossed out.
Absolutely. It became this battle of perspectives. Some saw it as a win for justice, no one above the law. Others, they saw it as the court overstepping, denying the jury its right.
And beyond this case specifically, it raised bigger questions about juries in India's legal system.
Oh, for sure. The Nanavati case sparked real change. The government worried about emotional bias in juries. So they ended up abolishing jury trials in criminal cases completely.
Wow, I didn't realize how huge the impact was. It's incredible how this one crime of passion led to such a fundamental change in a nation's entire judicial system.
It shows just how important this case was. Went way beyond the individuals involved. It sparked national dialogue, challenged legal norms, forced India to face its evolving identity as a modern nation.
This deep dive is so much more than just retelling what happened. I can't wait to hear about the aftermath and how this landmark case continued to shape India. So we've seen how this case just exploded in the media, and how it divided public opinion, and how it ultimately resulted in this huge decision that reshaped India's entire legal system. But what happened to Nanavati himself after the High Court reversed that jury's not guilty verdict?
Well, even though he was convicted of murder, he didn't actually serve a full sentence. After 3 years in prison, he was pardoned by Vijayalakshmi Pandit, the governor of Maharashtra at the time.
I bet that pardon just threw gasoline on the fire of that public debate.
Oh yeah, absolutely. For the people who saw Nanavati as a victim of circumstance, it felt like vindication, like he'd suffered enough. But for those who believed the law had to be applied no matter what, it felt like justice had been betrayed.
It feels like this case never stopped being controversial.
You're right, it really forced people to think about what they believed, about guilt and innocence, and what justice actually means. Was Nanavati a cold-blooded killer or a man driven to a desperate act? The pardon didn't give any clear answers. It just made the ambiguity even stronger.
And what about Nanavati and Sylvia? Did they try to rebuild their lives in India after he was released?
No, they actually chose to emigrate to Canada with their children. They left behind the country that had been so captivated by their story. Maybe they were hoping to escape the constant attention and find some peace away from the public eye.
It's kind of a bittersweet ending to this really captivating story. A decorated naval officer, a love triangle, a shocking murder, and a legal battle that changed the course of India's legal system. The Nanavati case really had it all.
It was a case that went so far beyond just a simple crime. It became a reflection of India itself in the late 1950s, a society dealing with massive changes, wrestling with tradition versus modernity, and trying to figure out what justice meant in their own context.
As we wrap up this third deep dive at our Unsolved Mystery series, what are some of the big takeaways for our listeners to think about?
I think this case shows us that human emotions are incredibly powerful. Sometimes they lead us to actions with consequences we never could have imagined. It also shows how complicated justice is, how people see it and understand it in completely different ways, depending on their own experiences and where they come from.
And how a single event can spark a national conversation, making a whole society confront their values, biases, and hopes for the future. The Nanavati case happened a while ago, but the themes are just as relevant today.
Absolutely. It makes us ask ourselves, what is justice, really? How do we balance the law with human emotions? And how do we live in a world where truth can be so subjective and perception can be more powerful than reality itself?
It's been fascinating exploring this story that continues to captivate and challenge us even decades later. If you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more intriguing looks into history's most compelling mysteries. Until next time, stay curious.